Hello and welcome to the Engerati studio. We're live at European Utility Week and I'm Rose and I'm joined now by Matthijs van Leeuwen, energy lawyer at Norton Fulbright. You're based in the Netherlands. Thank you for joining us, Matthijs.
Happy to. Thank you for the invite.
We wanted to focus our discussion today on energy storage and if it's being sufficiently rewarded. I know you're on a panel session here at the event.
Yes, indeed.
Perhaps you could just recap on some of the main points that came out of that discussion.
Yes, we had this very interesting session in which energy storage and especially the whole regulatory framework around energy storage was assessed from about 5 to 6 different jurisdictions. One was the US, the rest was all European jurisdictions. And all the presentations were about assessing whether energy storage already has a role to play in the current electricity system as very much designed by energy regulation and legislation. And I think that some of the main conclusions were that whereas every jurisdiction has its own design of the electricity system, the main conclusion was that generally all the regulatory frameworks do not properly take into account or reward energy storage and the services it can provide. For example, energy storage in the current regulation is considered to be both a generator and a consumer. All the tariffs that are in place under the regulation and all kinds of codes, etc., are applicable to either generator or consumer. But you can imagine that if you are qualified as both, you will be paying both the tariffs or taxes or other kind of levies that will be charged on the generator or consumer. Whereas, of course, energy storage is more of an intermediary within the electricity system, temporarily storing it and then releasing it when demand is high again. So this is really something that is a big barrier to the large-scale implementation of electrical energy storage, because that is what we are talking about.
Yeah.
So storing the excess electricity produced by renewable energy and causing a lot of spikes and imbalance in the electricity system.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, regulators do tend to move a little slowly, but I mean, is there a particular reason why a framework hasn't been created? Is it that you're not quite sure what that should look like?
No, I absolutely agree. They are notoriously slow in following the market, and especially in the whole transition from a fossil-fueled electricity system towards a more renewable fueled electricity system. Nobody really knows where the transition is going and at what pace it is going where. We do see some general trends. A lot more of intermittent renewables, like when the sun is shining and there's a lot of wind, but everybody's on the beach, there's not a lot of demand for electricity. Whereas at night when they come back, turn on their air conditioning or whatever, you get a big spike in the demand, but then maybe the wind has gone down and the sun doesn't have enough power anymore. So I think that everybody's struggling with the direction and the speed in which the whole electricity system is evolving, and what kind of regulation would be beneficial, or what kind of regulation could be really steering the transition in a certain direction.
So in your opinion, what should energy storage be classified as? A generator or consumer?
I think it could be, nowadays it's generally considered as a generator, but it also functions as a consumer. And I think that it would be best if a separate asset class would be introduced, not with an entirely separate regime of legislation, but just so that you can create a level playing field between all kinds of flexibility options that will be very important in the future electricity system. So that it can also compete with other flexibility options like gas-fired power plants, grid reinforcements, demand response, all these kinds of things. So I think the main thing is that there should be a level playing field and not double tariffing or making it unnecessary hard for energy storage operators to enter the market and actually make a commercially viable case for their energy storage.
So are we seeing groups lobbying regulators for that change at the moment?
We do, yes. There's a European Energy Storage Association. Germany has a very active, well, it's a lobby group, it's more of an industry group trying to make sure everything is moving in the right direction. And I myself have been contributing to this National Action Plan for Energy Storage in the Netherlands, which is also a group of technology developers, but also grid managers, utilities, all kinds of different parties, stakeholders who are actively looking at energy storage and what it can mean for the future electricity system. So what we have done is just identify some 30 points, unfavorable conditions or barriers in existing regulation that need to be either amended, taken away, or there needs to be introduced some more specified regulation to create this level playing field and to really make sure that this very promising technology will have its role to play in the future electricity system, as it is very much considered a game changer for the future electricity system.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you suggested that it be treated as a new asset class. Is there a broad base of support for that solution at the moment?
There has been a lot of discussion because people think it would be overcomplicating things. But if you look at current legislation, there's also different classes for interconnectors, for gas storage, for example, if you want to compare it to something. So I don't think it would be very complicated. It's just that people have to really think about it for a while. And I think that if we are looking from the European Union, there will be a new legislative package coming. It's called the Winter Package. And there, indeed, we expect to have a separate asset class, but only to the extent that it is necessary.
Okay. I want to ask you about one specific kind of example happening in the market. So Eneco's virtual power plant using Tesla Powerwalls. What's your kind of opinion of that?
Well, I think considering the enormous amount of flexibility that we are needing in a future electricity system, because as I said, wind and sun production is not very well forecasted. If everybody's going to drive an electric vehicle, then you will have large spikes in demand of electricity, even more so than now. So flexibility is key for the future. And flexibility can also be provided by small households. But of course, for an individual household, they may not be incentivized to really undertake such balancing actions for the grid. But what Eneco is now doing is offering local storage, household level, for people that also have solar panels on their roof. And they offer this storage capacity, but then they reserve a certain percentage of the capacity of this battery, which they aggregate in this sort of a virtual power plant. Yeah. And if then your portfolio gets big enough, then of course you can undertake the balancing actions from that storage as well. So I think the aggregator is already a role that, it's generally accepted will play a big role in the future electricity system. And this is one of the pilot projects that is very, very interesting to watch.
Yeah. Just thinking about the role of, the TSO and the DSO, doesn't it make sense that they can actually own and operate their own storage?
That is another very big point of discussion as well, which we addressed during the sessions on Tuesday as well. And of course, so many different stakeholders, so many different views. But if you're looking behind the philosophy of European legislation in respect of organizing the electricity market, then there is a clear distinction between companies active in the generation, supply and trade of electricity, and the monopolized infrastructure that should be facilitating the demand and supply of electricity. And as you see with monopolies, their role can be can bring some distortion to markets. So the philosophy behind the whole EU legislation has been liberalization of the production and supply and trade of electricity. So it would be very logic, of course, if there is a certain bottleneck in a TSO or DSO network, that they can do something about it, as they are doing now,
Yeah.
because already balancing markets exist and for primary reserve, etc. But these are generally procured from market parties. So there will be a signal that at a certain point a certain generator will have to increase its feed-in or decrease its feed-in. That's of course also a role that storage can play. So if you have this analogy, then why should a TSO or DSO develop this instead of the market?
Okay.
Having said that, you can also imagine that a market party will not always provide solution that is necessary for the safe and efficient functioning of the network as operated by a DSO or a TSO. So I would be mostly in favor of having the TSOs and the DSOs providing all information that is necessary for solving bottlenecks or identifying the bottlenecks, provided to the market. Let's see if they can provide an efficient, especially cost-efficient solution, and if not, and subject to very strict conditions, then they can own and maybe even operate, control a storage facility.
Okay, it's definitely one to watch, isn't it, in the next
Definitely, yes.
next few months. Thank you,
Yeah.
Matthijs. Thanks for your comments. And that's all we've got time for. And you can watch more of the interviews from European Utility Week on the Engerati YouTube channel. And that's all we've got time for. Thank you.